The Israeli military has reportedly struck multiple sites in South Lebanon on Saturday after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered dozens of terror targets hit in response to cross-border rocket fire. Israeli military stated the IDF struck dozens of Hezbollah rocket launchers and a command center from which Hezbollah terrorists were operating in southern Lebanon. Lebanon state media has reported that 2 people, including a girl, were killed in the attack on southern Lebanon. This came after Israel had already threatened to hit back. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has said previously in a statement that they cannot allow fire from Lebanon on Galilee communities. He also stated that the Lebanese government is responsible for attacks from its territory and he's ordered the military to respond accordingly. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has denied the responsibility for cross-border attacks on Israel. This situation has prompted the Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam to warn that the country risks being dragged into a new war. A fragile ceasefire that took effect on the 27th of November has been marred by repeated accusations of violations by both sides, but the Israeli warning marked the biggest threat so far to the relative calm it had brought to broader areas. Well, the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon, meanwhile, has also voiced concern over the escalating violence. In a statement, the UN force said UNIFIL remains alarmed by the possible escalation of violence following the detection of 4 projectiles launched from Lebanon into Israel in the vicinity of Metula and triggering immediate retaliation by the IDF. Well, joining us now is Adnan Nasser, A News correspondent. He's joining us live from Beirut in Lebanon. Thank you very much for being with us live today. Let me begin by asking you about this very precarious situation. How concerning are these fresh developments between Israel and Lebanon?
Well, I'd like to start off by saying more than likely we're not going to see this escalate further beyond the border, nothing further than the Litani River. As you said in your introduction, Hezbollah denies officially being involved or carrying out these attacks, putting the blame on independent organizations to which Hezbollah has denied any close involvement with. However, it's unlikely that these rocket launches would have happened without the support or endorsement or the go-ahead from Hezbollah. Hezbollah has promised the Lebanese government since the inception of the ceasefire that had taken into effect on November 27th last year that it will no longer be involved militarily against the Israelis. However, since then, Hezbollah has said Israel has violated the ceasefire on numerous occasions and that they're not going to leave the people of the South undefended. If they want to give the Lebanese armed forces an opportunity to demonstrate its capability of protecting the residents of the South. And unfortunately, the Lebanese army, from the point of view of the Lebanese, especially living in the southern area of Lebanon, the army has not performed in its duties because the Israelis keep attacking areas that they claim to belong to Hezbollah, but more so than not, we see civilians being killed. So if this were to escalate, I doubt very much that it's going to escalate into a full-scale war like we had seen after October 7th, but the risk of it taking place is higher now than it was before. The Lebanese army now needs to take a bold stand and be more assertive and say that it's prepared to use defensive measures to protect the civilians of the South if Israel continues these strikes.
For now, what is the latest situation in South Lebanon that you have heard from your sources?
Well, my sources tell me that the civilian population is deeply afraid of what's going to happen. However, they want to see some sort of retaliatory measure. Some of the sources I had spoken to, their attitude is one of very courageous. They don't want to show any fear in the face of what they call the Israeli enemy. As you said also in your introduction, if I can repeat it, that the UNIFIL sees this as a precarious situation and they're worried that it could escalate into something into a full-scale confrontation between Hezbollah and the Israelis. And you have to also keep something in mind. Hezbollah, from the onset of October 7th, at the outset, they had said that they didn't want to stop their shelling of Israel's military targets or even civilian targets after Hamas had been part of it. They didn't want to separate themselves from what they call the unification of the fronts. So is there a chance that this could escalate? I doubt that very much because Hezbollah is still in a weakened situation after the setbacks it had experienced from the war it faced with the Israelis.
Okay, as you said, you're not foretelling that this will, escalate, of course, further. However, do you expect then these, border attacks to continue between both sides?
No, I think there's going to be some international pressure, especially from the side of the United States. You have to keep something in mind. President Donald Trump is prepared to use military force in areas like Yemen against the Houthis, prepared to let the Israelis do what it wants to do in Gaza. But it has, the United States, of course, and President Donald Trump has allies in Lebanon. He doesn't want to see, he's made a very strong vow that the war will not resume in Lebanon. And he has partners here. He has he's declared a new ambassador in Lebanon. As far as I'm aware, he's of Lebanese heritage. So there's something about Lebanon that's given a special case, and he wants to give the Lebanese government time to de-escalate the situation. And they need international pressure led by the U.S. to prevent the Israelis from taking this any further.
All right, appreciate you joining us, Adnan Nasser, with your perspective on that big story.